You ever have one of those days where you're just too tired to cook? So you open the fridge, grab yesterday's leftovers, pop them in the microwave and think, whoa, that'll do. Maybe it's some rice, a couple of boiled eggs, that bowl of mashed potatoes from Sunday dinner, or even those steamed greens your doctor said were good for your heart. You hit that reheat button, grab a fork, and settle down, feeling like you just made a smart, easy choice. But what if I told you that tiny choice, reheating your food, might be doing more harm than good? Not just causing an upset stomach, but potentially increasing your risk of cancer, memory loss, or even long-term health complications? Sounds dramatic, right? But this isn't about fear-mongering. This is about awareness, especially if you're over 50, or if you're caring for someone who is. Because as we get older, our bodies can't process things the same way. What once passed right through us at 30 might stick around and silently do damage at 65. Here's what most folks don't know: some of the most common foods in your kitchen, when reheated the wrong way, can change at the chemical level. They can produce toxins, bacteria, or compounds that do not go away with heat, and they can trigger everything from food poisoning to increased oxidative stress in the brain, which means that something as ordinary as microwaving your spinach or rice could be putting you or your loved one at risk. And the worst part? Most people have no idea it's happening. They think they're being frugal, efficient, smart. And I get it, because I used to do the same thing. Leftovers are a lifesaver, especially when you're taking care of someone who doesn't eat much, or when you're too tired to make a whole new meal. But here's the truth. Doctors have quietly been sounding the alarm about this for years. And today, we're going to break it all down, one food at a time. By the end of this video, you're going to know the 5 most common foods that become toxic when reheated. Foods you probably have in your fridge right now. Foods that seem totally harmless until they're not. And you'll want to stick around because that 5th one? It's the most surprising of them all. And chances are you've been reheating it wrong your entire life. So before we dive in, take a second. Comment, "I'm here for the truth," if you want to protect your health or the health of someone you love. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join us here at Life Stamina, where we share simple, powerful ways to live longer, feel stronger, and care better. Let's get into it. You're going to want to hear this. Now let's start with one of the most trusted staples in almost every home: rice. Soft, comforting, and easy to reheat, it's the go-to side dish for so many meals. You probably make a big pot of it, right? Eat some today, save the rest for tomorrow. Seems harmless enough. But picture this for a moment. You're caring for your elderly parent or grandparent. Lunch rolls around. You're tired. They're tired. So you do what you always do. You pull out that container of leftover rice from yesterday's dinner, warm it up in the microwave, and serve it up with a little stew or maybe some grilled chicken. It looks fine, smells fine, tastes fine. Everything seems okay until a few hours later. Suddenly, they start complaining about stomach cramps. Maybe they feel nauseous, a little dizzy. You think, maybe it's just their digestion acting up again. Happens all the time, right? But what if it's not just indigestion? What if that bowl of rice you lovingly reheated was actually the problem? Here's the hard truth most people don't realize. Reheated rice, especially if it's been left out for too long or wasn't stored properly, can grow a dangerous bacteria called Bacillus cereus. This bacteria doesn't always make the rice look or smell different, but it produces toxins that cannot be destroyed by heat. So even if you microwave the rice until it's piping hot, those toxins might still be sitting there, waiting to do harm. And for older adults, whose immune systems may not be as strong, that kind of food poisoning can be much more than just uncomfortable. It can lead to severe dehydration, weakness, confusion, even hospitalization if not caught quickly. But here's the thing. Most people just don't know this. They think if I heat it up enough, it'll be fine. But unfortunately, that's not how it works with this bacteria. Heat kills bacteria, yes, but it doesn't neutralize the toxins Bacillus cereus leaves behind. And those are what cause the real damage. So what can you do? Here's a simple rule of thumb. After you cook rice, don't leave it sitting out. Get it into the fridge within 1 hour. Not 2, not after the dishes are done. 1 hour. And when it's time to reheat it, Make sure you only reheat once and do it thoroughly. The center should be steaming hot, not just warm to the touch. But if you're caring for someone older, or if you notice they don't handle leftovers well anymore, consider cooking smaller batches of rice instead. Yes, it takes a little more effort, but the peace of mind is worth it, especially when you know you're protecting someone you love. Because rice might seem innocent, but when reheated the wrong way, it can quietly become a danger hiding in plain sight. And rice isn't the only food you should be watching closely. Up next, a breakfast favorite that many people swear by, but when reheated, it could quietly be putting the brain and body under serious stress. Let's talk about eggs. Boiled, scrambled, poached, or in an omelet. They're one of the most trusted, protein-rich foods in any household. And for many older adults, they're a go-to breakfast choice. Simple, soft, easy to digest, and full of nutrients. You might even have a routine. You boil a few in the morning for your mom or dad. And if they don't finish all of them, you toss the extras in the fridge, planning to warm them up later for lunch or a snack. Sounds efficient, right? Nothing goes to waste. And hey, it's just an egg. What harm could that possibly do? But here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. Reheating eggs, especially in the microwave or on high heat, can quietly turn this wholesome, trusted food into something quite different. You see, when eggs are reheated at high temperatures, their protein structure changes. And this isn't just a matter of taste or texture. That change at the molecular level can cause the egg to release harmful chemical compounds. One of the biggest concerns? These compounds are known to increase oxidative stress in the body. Now, oxidative stress might sound like one of those complicated science terms, but in plain language, it's what happens when unstable molecules, called free radicals, start building up faster than your body can clear them out. And over time, that kind of stress has been linked to chronic inflammation, cell damage, and even long-term conditions like cancer and cognitive decline, especially in older adults. Here's the kicker. It's not the egg itself that's the problem. It's the way we reheat it. A lot of folks assume eggs are safe no matter what. They're clean, they're cooked, and they've been around forever. But when that egg goes back into high heat, especially in a microwave, that's when the proteins become unstable. And that's when it can start to do more harm than good. So what can you do instead? First, whenever possible, serve eggs freshly cooked. They don't take long to make, and you know exactly how they're being handled. If you must reheat them, maybe it's a busy day, maybe someone didn't finish their breakfast, do it gently. Use the stove. Keep the heat low. Warm it slowly and evenly. And most importantly, avoid the microwave altogether. Yes, it's fast, but it doesn't heat evenly, and it's more likely to trigger those protein changes. Because here's what matters most. When we're caring for someone older, every small decision adds up. And something as tiny as how we warm up an egg can make a quiet difference in how well their body responds to food. Eggs may seem innocent, but when you understand what happens inside them during reheating, it's clear why doctors and nutritionists alike urge caution, especially for vulnerable bodies. Now, let's move on to something that might really surprise you. It's green. It's leafy. It's the poster child of healthy eating. But when you reheat it, you might be turning it into a ticking time bomb for your brain and your cells. Let's talk about spinach, kale, and other leafy greens. These groups of foods that most people proudly put at the top of their healthy eating list. Leafy greens, spinach, kale, celery. Packed with vitamins, minerals, fiber, they're often the first thing you reach for when you want to feel like you're doing something good for your body. And rightly so. Maybe you made a pot of homemade spinach soup yesterday for your aging father, or whipped up a kale stir-fry for yourself. It was nutritious, full of flavor, and he loved it. The next day you think, why not warm it up again? Spinach is good for you, right? So you pop it in the microwave, give it a quick stir, and serve it again, thinking you're doubling down on something healthy. But here's what almost nobody talks about. When leafy greens like spinach or kale are reheated, especially at high temperatures or in the microwave, they change at the chemical level. What was once nourishing can quietly become dangerous. Here's why. Leafy greens are naturally high in nitrates. Now, nitrates themselves aren't bad. In fact, in their raw form, they can help improve blood flow and reduce blood pressure. But when you reheat these vegetables, especially more than once, those nitrates can break down into nitrites, And from there, they can turn into nitrosamines. And nitrosamines, they've been linked to cancer development, particularly in the digestive system. They're also known to place extra stress on the brain and nervous system, which can be especially risky for older adults, whose bodies already have to work harder to maintain balance and process toxins. So you're thinking, wait, I thought greens were supposed to be one of the healthiest things I could feed my mom or dad? And you're absolutely right, they are, when served fresh or when handled carefully. The truth is, most people don't know this. They think if something is good for you once, it must be good for you every time, in every form. But reheating leafy greens in the microwave or letting them sit too long after cooking, that's where the risk sneaks in. So what can you do? Here's a better approach. If you're cooking leafy greens, like spinach, kale, or even celery in soups, only prepare the portion will be eaten right away. If you do have leftovers, store them in an airtight container and keep them in the fridge immediately after cooling. And if you plan to eat them later, consider serving them cold, in a salad or side dish. If you absolutely need to reheat, do it gently on the stovetop at low temperatures, stirring slowly and evenly, because these vegetables are still incredibly valuable to your health, but only when we treat them with care. And when we understand how our good intentions could accidentally go sideways. So don't throw away your spinach or kale. Just get smart about how you use them. Now, there's another common food that shows up in almost every household. Protein-rich, filling, and always a favorite, but it might be one of the most dangerous to reheat if you're not doing it right. Now let's talk about a food that's in almost every fridge at the end of the week: chicken. Whether it's roasted on Sunday, grilled for lunch, or baked for dinner, chicken is that reliable go-to protein. It's lean, satisfying, and easy to pair with just about anything. So naturally, when there are leftovers, you don't think twice. You wrap it up, store it away, and reheat it when someone's hungry. Picture this. It's the day after your big family meal. There's a bit of roasted chicken left from dinner. You slice a few pieces for your elderly dad, pop it in the microwave, maybe pour a little gravy on top. He eats it with a smile. You feel good knowing he's fed. But later that evening, he's clutching his stomach. He's uncomfortable. He says he feels bloated or nauseous or just off. And you start to wonder, what went wrong? Everything was cooked. Everything was clean. You were just trying to make things easier. But here's the thing most people don't realize about reheating chicken. When you reheat cooked chicken, especially in the microwave, the protein structure begins to change. And we're not talking about just the taste or texture. This shift in protein makeup can actually make chicken much harder to digest, especially for older adults. Their digestive systems are slower, more sensitive, and less equipped to break down complex or altered proteins. But that's not the only issue. Reheating chicken too quickly or unevenly, like in the microwave, can leave the inside cooler than the outside. So while it feels hot on the surface, deep inside, it might still be in the temperature danger zone, where bacteria can survive and multiply. And in an aging body, even a small amount of lingering bacteria can lead to fatigue, stomach trouble, or worse, an infection that requires medical attention. This is where good intentions can turn into hidden risks, because most people assume if it's hot, it's safe. But with dense proteins like chicken, that's just not true. So, what should you do instead? Here's the safer, smarter way to handle leftover chicken. First, reheat it slowly and evenly. Use the stove or oven instead of the microwave whenever possible. Slice the chicken thin, spread it out in a pan, and heat it gently until it's warm all the way through. The goal is to get the internal temperature up to at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the safe zone. And if you don't want to go through the trouble of reheating at all, that's okay too. Serve it cold, in a salad, a sandwich, or even chopped into a wrap. Cold chicken can still be delicious, and when stored properly, it's safe, clean, and easy on the stomach. Because when you're caring for someone who's older or more vulnerable, it's the little things, like how we warm up a plate of food, that can quietly make a world of difference. Now, we've talked about rice, eggs, leafy greens, and chicken, each one with its own set of risks when reheated carelessly. But there's one more food, and this one surprises just about everyone. It doesn't look dangerous, it doesn't smell dangerous, but left out too long and reheated the wrong way, it could turn into one of the most toxic leftovers on your plate. Let's talk about one more food that might truly catch you off guard: potatoes. They're comforting, they're familiar. Whether mashed, baked, fried, or turned into a stew, potatoes have a way of making a meal feel complete. They show up at every holiday table, in almost every family recipe, and they're a favorite for older adults who want something filling and easy on the stomach. So naturally, when your loved one enjoys a helping of mashed potatoes, you think, I'll just make a big batch now and save the rest for later. You refrigerate it. Maybe it sits out a little longer than it should, but it still looks fine. You scoop some out the next day, heat it up in the microwave, and serve it with care. But what you don't see, what none of us can see with the naked eye, is that those leftover mashed potatoes might now be hiding a toxic surprise. Here's what most people don't realize. Cooked potatoes, especially mashed potatoes, are incredibly starch-rich, and if they're left at room temperature for too long, they can create the perfect breeding ground for a highly dangerous bacterium called Clostridium botulinum. Yes, botulism. It's rare, but when it happens, it's serious. And here's the really unsettling part. Even if you reheat the potatoes, even if they're steaming hot on the outside, that bacteria can leave behind toxins that aren't destroyed by heat. These toxins can cause nausea, vomiting, dizziness, but more alarmingly, they can trigger neurological symptoms, muscle weakness, blurred vision, even difficulty breathing. And for elderly individuals whose systems are already more fragile, these effects can be especially dangerous, possibly even life-threatening, if not treated quickly. Now, no one's saying throw out every leftover potato dish. That's not the message here. The message is awareness, because the mistake isn't the potato. The mistake is how we handle it. We assume that once something's been cooked, it's automatically safe again after a quick zap in the microwave. But that's not always the case, especially when we're dealing with starchy, moisture-heavy foods like mashed potatoes. So what should you do? If you've cooked a big batch, don't let it sit out for hours. Get it into the fridge within 1 hour of cooking. Use shallow containers so it cools quickly and evenly. When it's time to reheat, skip the microwave, especially for big clumps. Use the stovetop, stir it gently, warm it slowly, thoroughly, until every bit is heated evenly. And here's something else to consider. Leftover potatoes can actually taste better cold, in a potato salad, or sliced and pan-seared the next day. Sometimes, the safest option is the simplest one. Because potatoes may seem humble and harmless, but when mishandled, they can quietly turn into something far more harmful than anyone expects. So now we've walked through 5 everyday foods. Foods that live in our fridges, show up on our plates, and are often served with the best intentions. But as we've seen, intention doesn't always equal safety. So now let's take a moment to talk about why this matters so deeply, especially when we're talking about the people we love, the people we care for, the people we want to protect as they age with dignity and peace. Let's talk about what all of this really means. It's not easy, is it? To hear that something as simple as a warm plate of food, something you made with love, could quietly become a risk to someone you're trying so hard to protect. You think you're doing the right thing. You're trying to save time, reduce waste, keep meals ready and easy. You're doing your best. But then you learn that even those small routines could be working against the very people you're trying to care for. And that's hard. It's frustrating, even painful. But here's the truth. This isn't about blame. It's about awareness. It's about learning things most people don't know and using that knowledge to do better. Because now, you do know, and that puts you in a position of strength. This isn't a message of fear. It's a message of empowerment. Because the truth is, small changes in how we store and reheat food can have life-saving impacts, especially for seniors. This is about giving your loved ones the best chance to stay well, to eat safely, to age in peace, with dignity, and without unnecessary health scares that could have been avoided with just a little more insight. So here's what I encourage you to do, starting today. Take a look in your fridge. Notice what's left over. Think about how you've been reheating things. Talk to your spouse, your siblings, your kids. If you're a caregiver, have that conversation with your client's family. You don't need to overhaul everything, but those small shifts, they might be the reason someone avoids a trip to the ER, or worse. And let's not forget, this is about love. When we take the time to learn and to care in this way, we're not just preparing meals, we're protecting lives. With care, with attention, and with heart, we can help the people we love stay strong, safe, and thriving well into their golden years. Let's quickly recap what we've learned today. We talked about 5 everyday foods you probably have in your kitchen right now. Rice, eggs, leafy greens, chicken, and potatoes. Each one seems harmless, but when reheated improperly, they can become quietly toxic, especially for seniors with more delicate systems. So, now I'd love to hear from you. Which of these foods surprised you the most? Have you ever had a strange reaction or stomach upset after eating leftovers and never knew why? Share your story in the comments below, because chances are your experience could help someone else avoid a mistake. And if this video opened your eyes or helped you think differently, go ahead and give it a like. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to Life Stamina, where we bring you practical, deep, trustworthy tips on how to care for yourself and your loved ones with wisdom, patience, and heart. Because your time here, it matters. Your attention to detail, it's what makes the difference. So thank you for spending a few minutes with us today, for caring enough to learn, and for doing your part to help our elders live safer, healthier, and more dignified lives. Stay informed, stay kind, stay strong, and we'll see you right here on the next video. Take care.